right, everybody, welcome back to the 1% podcast. I am excited for this one because it's nice because we never really spoke. So we're going to dive in deep and it's going to be absolutely incredible. I'm excited to have Jeremy on the podcast. How are you doing, bud?
I'm good, and thank you for having me here.
No, honestly, it's nice because I think since kind of summertime and things like that, I've been following your stuff, and then also from business, from the other side of the world, from coaching,
Yeah.
from your own training. It's been really nice to watch. So it's just going to be good to kind of just lay it out all on the table, which is awesome. For anyone that doesn't know who you are, dude, what do you do? Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? What's going on?
So I am what you call a self-proclaimed gym bro, or the IFBB bro. So I've done quite a few shows in my past, about like 9 IFBB shows, traveled internationally for some shows as well, doing men's physique. I'm pretty much an online coach now, so fully online, helping people transform their lives, doing comp prep or lifestyle.
Sick, man. And how did it all start? So I guess backtracking to, I guess like early teens and things like that. What was kind of the upbringing like and things like that?
Yeah. So when I started, so my dad bought me my first set of dumbbells when I was, I think 13 years old. Back when it was like the spin lock dumbbells and
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
attachments. It was the rattle dumbbells, what I call them. And so that was my first set. Didn't know what I was doing, just started lifting. And then we started like arm wrestling heaps in school. And it just kind of became a thing. I just kind of enjoyed doing it, like pushing, taking my body through those processes and feeling sore. Obviously nowadays, there's a lot more information out there on the internet where, people are more knowledgeable at a very young age. Whereas, back then I just had to ask, the biggest guy at the gym or like kind of just guesswork, like ask my dad's friends who are like a lot older than us. And so that's pretty much how I started. I went to uni, did my first show like 2-3 years after uni, and then realized that I wanted to become a PT. And then so began my PT journey. Wanted to help people, work because I just love the gym. I just always trained. Even back then when I used to party heaps, I always made sure to, train 7 days a week. Like I'll train every single day, like no matter what day it is. And then I started competing and I was like, you know what, I want to help people, became a PT. And then, yeah, dropped out of uni, did that, started competing and then just never looked back.
Damn. What was, because obviously you're obviously in Perth, Australia, which is I can relate to
Yeah.
because obviously all my family actually live in Perth, and it's a very everyone knows everyone in Perth.
Oh, it's a very small state. If you're
Yeah,
from here,
and it's
very
like,
tight knit.
and it's the most isolated city in the world, or something bizarre, isn't it? Or like,
Honestly, it could be its own country. I think Western Australia has always thought about becoming its own country because we're 5 hours away from like the other side of the country, and like all the other states on the east side, and we're literally the only one west side with a bunch of desert and water around us. That's pretty much it.
fucking crazy, isn't it? I remember, what was it? Someone, I don't know, someone told me a fact, and it was England can fit into WA something like 26 times.
Oh yes, no, probably 100%. But I don't know if that includes the sand, because obviously, like if it's like possible to live like in the desert, so I
Yeah,
guess
that's
like there are people that live in like Alice Springs and stuff. Yeah.
that's what I think is crazy. So like the UK has about like 70, I think it's like 70 million or something like that people in there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
WA doesn't even have fucking close to like 30 million.
Yeah, yeah. Might as well just move to Western Australia.
Fuck, it's nuts, man. And how are you born and raised there? Like, what's the
Yeah,
background? Yeah, born and raised in
yeah.
WA.
My parents, Malaysian Chinese, and they migrated here and they gave birth to myself and my sister. And so I've been in Perth like all my life.
Amazing.
I don't know where my accent actually comes from. I don't know if I sound Australian, or
Yeah,
even sound like I have a very mixed accent. Oh, if I'm Aussie, then that's good then.
yeah, no, you sound Aussie. It's okay. You're safe. Well,
Yeah,
it's not like, but then I
yeah,
don't think Perth has like a real strong, oh, maybe because I have family there, so I don't pick up on it as much. But I don't
yeah.
think it's as strong as like some areas at all. I think Perth's a bit more, I don't know, it doesn't seem as harsh.
Yes, it's very multicultural. That's what I found. Like, even growing up, it was a, very multicultural schools. You know, you got all different nationalities, cultures there, and you get to experience it all, which is like really good. And I think you know, we start off at a very young age that, you know, it's like we always do cultural days where, like, you know, it would be like a lot of different cultures, you know, and it's just really good to see that all, because then it keeps your mind open about different, like, how the world is. And like, honestly, traveling is something everyone must do.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely with the world that we live in now. I think it's just, I guess we can always relate this back to training and nutrition, right? I guess the more open-minded you can be to cultures, to diets and things like that, the more you're going to absorb and develop yourself, which is the most important thing. What's kind of like, I guess what did you do at uni? Why did you drop out and things like that?
So I was studying uni, so I was doing Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Commerce. So studying management and finance, and I was doing health science, which was going to lead to like physio. But then I dropped out because yeah, just like I was partying around that time, so I'm not gonna lie. You know,
Yeah.
I used to just be one of those guys, the gym bros who would like just train and party and like eat well. But then had the partying on top, but as you do it when you're young, right?
Yeah.
And then I pretty much decided that I didn't want to go to uni or like finish uni after I started competing, and I became a PT just because I wanted to work for myself. Like I wanted to, like I found if there's easier ways of doing things, like, you know, in my previous jobs, I would always try to opt for the not easier way, but the faster route. If there's something that could be done better, like if the process is more seamless, doing it a quicker way, which still provides the exact same quality, it's just a lot more efficient, then I would be like, I want to do that. And then I realized that I couldn't really, like, I wanted to run my own business. Didn't really want to work for an employer kind of thing. And so I pretty much dropped out and then began my like PT business, which was you know, it was like, you know, as everyone does, you trade a lot of time for money because you are like helping people inside the gym. And I did the 4 a.m.s. I did, you know, start at like 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Like had to get up like 3 a.m. for my first 4 a.m. client, work till like 10 a.m., take a break and go train really in between, and then start work again at like 3:34 p.m. and then finish like 6, 7. And it was just like, it was just a very a lot of work. I loved it because I think that hands-on experience what makes you good as an online coach.
Yeah, 100. And honestly, I agree with it. I feel like it's so easy now to put in your fucking bio or whatever it is. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm like, I can write that shit, but it would feel really cringy to write it. Like anyone can write stuff, but I think especially when it comes to, do you know what? Regardless if it's fitness or not, right? Any career or any industry, I think you need to do the groundwork. You need to walk the walk. You need to do the shit to earn the right to have the better life going forward. And
Yeah.
there's definitely not saying now we don't put in the hours still. They're just a bit nicer hours instead of 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, 3 a.m. in the morning. You can at least wake up when you need to.
fuck, man, I was the same. Like honestly, yeah, because how long did you do on the gym floor? How long were you face to face for?
I was at least, I need probably stopped 2 years ago. So it's been
Wow.
only, yeah, about like, so I was doing that for at least 5 years.
Okay, yeah. So
I
we're
was just
probably,
doing,
yeah, I think I was about 4 to 5. Yeah, about that.
yeah. And I think, you know, when I started, like, you know, the 4 to 5 is great because, you know, it gives you that. I think the number one thing that comes from doing the hard yards is that, you know, you build the communication skills to be able to talk to someone. And I
Yeah,
think, you know, what makes a good personal trainer or even a coach would be like that communication.
yeah,
You know, being able to, you know, just putting your name as online coach is different to a personal trainer. Like we're not really an online personal trainer. Like the coach definitely is more understanding that we are here to understand people's characteristics, people's weaknesses and strengths, and our goal is to help people who have weaknesses. We build on that. People who are very good at what they do but need to be better. We have to build on that as well. It's like, you know, we have to take everyone in the team, you know, seriously and make sure that we help them all improve, no
yeah,
matter what skill level they're at. Yeah.
100%. And I think that's I always tell people that training and nutrition is fucking easy. Like it generally is on the grand scheme. Like honestly, we could sit here and people could ask in a million questions and we could answer them. You would give your opinion, I'd give my opinion. They would both be correct. It's up to them how they want to do it. So I feel like go online and search what training program you do. Go online and search what nutrition to do. The difference is what we do is that we look at the other 23 hours of your day.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Like, you're going to the gym 4 times a week, 5 times a week. We're dissecting your life. Be like, well, why aren't we performing here? Why are we feeling like this? Why do you feel like shit today? Why is this affected you so much? Because when we can unlock all of that psychological stuff, then actually eating the right things, training and things like that can be learned, can be improved, and is very simple. Like, I can be like, bro, tell me 3 good exercises for your legs. And you're going to be like, probably like a leg press, a lying hamstring curl, quad extension. And we're like,
Yeah.
Good. Those are going to be in fucking everyone's training programs. So just get really good at them.
Yeah. And then we can talk about the quality.
Yeah.
It's like how well the client executes, because you could literally be the best program writer in the world, but 100 you give a program to 100 people, and maybe only 60 of them will get results and the other 40 won't. And is it because of your program writing skills, or is it come down to the client?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think most of the time it just comes down to, like you said, comes down to the communication side of it, teaching people how to execute, how to perform. Because like loads of us can, I've been very big on it in the last kind of year. I think the more advanced you get with coaching, you go straight into execution, performance, and things like that. Like, how do you move the weight? How can you feel the muscle? Because when you can start to do that, that's generally going to be your biggest fat burner. That's going to be your biggest stimulant for growth. That's going to be your, it's like everyone goes like, I can remember when we started, it was like 80% nutrition, 20% training. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And now you're like, nah, it's 100%, 100%.
Yeah, no, it's as simple as that, right? It's like you got to give it your all in every area, even like your sleep, your sleep quality, managing stress. There's so much managing fatigue. There's so many different variables that as coaches we have to look at and dissect people's lives, as he said. Because some people will struggle to get the results they want, and we have to be like, okay, this is what you need to do. There's too much information out there in the world that gets people confused. Like, do keto, do intermittent fasting, do carb backloading, do refeeds, I don't know, cheat meals per week. And it's about finding something, like the number one thing that people need to look at is just something that's sustainable and something that they can adhere to. Because if they can't do that, then everything's pointless. Like, they won't stick to it. They'll probably, after the 12 weeks or how long they stay with you, they're going to go back to their old ways because they didn't find that, that point of something that works for them, or like the habits and behaviors they need to be created while they're coaching with us.
No, I fully get it. And I want to kind of backtrack a little bit onto, I guess, your journey as well, because obviously this podcast is about you. And I guess you've done a bunch of shows in men's physique. Like, you've got a great physique. I love Instagram stalking, so it's perfect for that. Otherwise, you'd be like, take your top off, let's see what's there. But Instagram's good at stalking for that. Just kind of like, I guess, because obviously we're gonna take this kind of podcast more into kind of our opinions on, because we both specialize in kind of body transformations, photo shoot, comp preps, that kind of even lifestyle, but changing someone's life dramatically physically. So we're going to go on to kind of some tips and tricks for everyone in a bit. But I guess for you, like, over the years with competing, doing all that sort of stuff, what has been the best approach for you? Like, you've done 9-10 shows. Which kind of, did you ever find like a formula, like that just worked very well for you? This could be like, yeah, that's it. Like, keep it super simple, but like a training split that's just been like your go-to training split, and then potentially just like a meal plan, macros, whatever it is. What's kind of been like the prep that's, or even off season, that you just thought that was just fucking gold dust?
Well, this is a tough question. Something to add, I guess, like, I would admit when I used to prep, I heard a little bit at the beginning. So I started like about 8-9 years ago when keto was what was what we did. And my first coach literally just gave me a diet plan, which was literally steamed chicken breast and broccoli. So I am like, I just started around that time when it was still kind of new, and then flexible dieting, like what all the different options people have now, was not really around. It was just like fundamental, and I thought that this is what made you're a bodybuilder. Eating those, chicken breast, steamed chicken breast with no seasonings, no salt, pepper, maybe a little bit of salt, and then like, obviously the broccoli and stuff like that, and then just the bare minimum, and then just doing cardio, doing 12-week preps. Um, and it's something to take away, because as each comp went by, I got a new coach. I got two new coaches each time, and then I learned new things. One coach was making me have cheat meals per week for like prep. Like I'll have my low days, and then one cheat meal on the weekend. I could literally eat whatever I want. Like it could literally be burger, chips, all of that. And then as I moved on further, and I started coaching, started doing PT, started doing my own research and just learning about things. Nowadays it's all about flexible diet. It's all about these macros, like hitting these macro targets, and finding the best alternative, so that way it's sustainable. And that's where I felt like was a double-edged sword. Because eating basic is literally the best way. I think that's the best way to sustain those habits and behaviors for long-term success. Like no matter what, like eating chicken breast, and and meat options with like a carb option with a fat source, that's literally the bare minimum. Like you just need to be doing that. Like it doesn't, like you can eat 80% that, and then 20% whatever you want, and fit into your macros. But I just find that a lot of people try to find like an alternative route in regards to like trying to choose foods that are like more fun. Oh, I can fit this food in, I'll fit that food in. And I'm like, that's good. If it helps you sustain, that's fine. But what happens if you have one day where you eat bad? Or you binge all out. The next day, what do? You continue binging, or do you just get back on track? What's getting back on track?
Yeah.
I find that it's the fundamentals, like going back to just eating your meats, your carb source, the micronutrient, the good foods that give you good micronutrients, as well as, whole foods as well that isn't processed, is going to make you live this sort of lifestyle sustainably for a very long time.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm very much on the same ball game as you. I think the nice thing is I've done preps the same. And I think it's really important to. I do, because I'm still 50-50. I'm still 50% bro and still 50% now more science-based and educational based, right? But the bro approach, however everyone wants to call it, it fucking works. Like it's just because it's so extreme that it works. Is it sustainable? No. But if you were getting on stage, it's not a sustainable thing. So if that works for a 14, 16, 12-week prep, I'm like, I promise it'll work. Like there's a reason like all these videos go around like chicken, rice and broccoli and fish and rice cakes. I'm like, because honestly, it fucking works. So it is like, I agree. Like, I think right now I'm talking to the prep side of things, the bodybuilding side of things, the aggressive kind of bro mentality that I do think you need at certain time periods. And it is finding that rocking point. Then when you go into an off season, potentially that's going to be counterproductive because you've been so bro, you're going to rebound like fuck, because you're just going to eat whatever you want and go crazy for the next time period. And it's not going to be great. But I'm very much on the same ball game as you when it comes to nutrition. I'm like, people overcomplicate it, thinking, oh, what can I eat? And like, really simple, pick single ingredient foods, like you said. So pick a protein source, chicken, lean mincemeat, egg whites, whey, whatever it is. Pick that. Now pick a carb. So you could pick rice, oats, sweet potato, whatever it is. Pick that. And then pick like a micronutrient sort of thing, like veg, salad, fruit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then like your fat. So like peanut butter. And then boom. So you got 4 ingredients, and then just make the meal.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's like chicken, right? Chicken can be cooked so many ways, like be inventive, pan fry it, air fry it, oven it, sous vide it. I don't know, like there's so many ways of doing that. And sous vide is like a type of, actually, I don't know. It's like where they put it into like this plastic thing and they seal the air, oxygen, and then they cook it so it stays moist. I think that's what it's. Yeah. I'm not a chef. Nicole does all the cooking. So, but you can have chicken in many ways. And I think, that fundamental base is what has worked. Like when I get into prep, I would go bro, because I just find it easier for my coach to manage. I'll have maybe 20% at the beginning of like, fun stuff to keep me happy at the end of the day. Like maybe it might be ice cream that just makes me look forward to. So I definitely agree that, sustainability and adherence, number one. So the second thing would be that just keep it bro, for at least 80% of it. And then when you get closer to prep, like, to your last, I don't know, 5, 6 weeks, 7, 8 weeks, then you just go full, like, keep it basic because your calories are going to be very low. It'll be easier for your coach as well to help understand where you're at.
Yeah. Ooh.
But yeah.
No, sorry, I froze out a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, I do, like, I just think, like, we're very simple, but simple works. Simple really does work. And it's just like, don't overcomplicate. And a bit like when we come down to training, like me and you have run loads of different training programs. We've learned loads of different stuff. And it does get to the point where you're like, I think the biggest thing, like we touched on earlier, is regardless of not, if someone gave me a training program, it could be just anything, absolutely anything. But as soon as you learn to train till failure, as soon as you learn to execute movements correctly, I would get probably results from any training program. Like some would probably be more beneficial than others, of course. And then we would look at recovery standpoint and things like that. But when you can nail down the training execution and things like that, like any training program is really going to work if you can adhere to it. Like if I turn around and be like, oh, bro, you got to train 5 times a week and this guy works a 9 to 5 job, he's got 3 kids and things like that, I'm like, it's not going to be the best option. But if he can do 3 times a week consistently, extremely well, that's going to be the best option. I guess this is, again, like a nice insight for me as a coach as well. Like, right, I'm starting with you today. What is your approach? I want to do a photo shoot next summer.
As you said, with training, are we talking about training here?
Everything.
Yeah,
so I'm like, I'm signing up with you today.
Yeah.
And my mission by, say, a year's time, so September next year, I want to do a photo shoot. How do you map out that year for a client?
So because of that, the first thing we have to decide on what body fat level they're currently at. We have to obviously then see what they're currently doing with all the variables, like, what food intake are they currently having, what style of training are they doing, if any, and then assess whether or not what level of an athlete they may be, like whether they're beginner, novice, intermediate, advanced. Because obviously everyone makes gains at different rates. As you said, quality of training is so important that, we got to first look at, quality over quantity. Like, like you said, if you train 3 days, but you execute that so well, it's going to make growth. But that's dependent as well on the level of the athlete. If the athlete is like an intermediate or like, beginner, they're going to make gains no matter what they do. Like, even if they do not the best form, they're going to lift up some dumbbells as a stimulus, they're going to build muscle. But like someone like yourself who's advanced, it may take months. It may take months to even see some sort of progression, just because you would already be so experienced, you know how to execute well, you know how to get the quality in, which is very important, especially with training. So training split will just be dependent on your weaknesses. Obviously, we'll assess, your physique, see what areas need work, and kind of balance those areas out. Because, if you have, imbalanced body parts, then this could lead to bad movement patterns, which could in turn lead to injuries in the future. So it's important that we first assess those, markers. And then with nutrition, I'll just see where you're currently at, what you're currently doing. Obviously, like someone like yourself, you're already eating your 5, 6 meals a day. You've got everything split up. So just be more like if you're a beginner, most beginners may only eat like 2 or 3 meals a day. So the first thing we will have to do is like, what can we find that's sustainable for them? Like if they're able to eat 5 meals a day, because not everyone can eat 5, 6 meals a day.
So this is the thing. I eat 4. What's your opinion on that?
I think 4 is totally fine as long as you split your protein up over those 4 meals.
Okay.
Like I think that's number one. If you're looking at like the science, obviously they say protein synthesis is the most important part, and so that only happens every 3 hours when you eat. So that's why, like, if you split it more over like 5 or 6 meals, you get more protein synthesis, which will lead to more growth, because the growing only happens outside of the gym instead of inside the gym. As like inside the gym you tear down muscles, but your growing actually happens outside. Like what you do outside the gym dictates on how much muscle you're going to build. Unless you're a complete beginner, then anything's going to work. Like you're going to just grow anyways, just because it's a new stimulus.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I get so much bullshit because I eat 3 meals a day on rest days and then 4 meals a day on training days. And people fucking slam me for it all the time. And I'm like, I haven't got like generally like the time like we're working, coaching and things like that. I'm not fucking eating 6 meals a day. I don't give a fuck. There's no way. Like, and 100%. I prefer to sit down and like have a meal instead of just like a piece of Tupperware like this. I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's the shit
Yes.
meal. I'm eating a
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
meal sort of thing. And I think, I don't know, I've just always kind of, I don't know, always done that really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting to kind of get to know that approach really. And it's, go on, I don't know if you're going to carry on either. It's me just jumping in.
Yeah, no, that's all good. And I think it's the number one thing is like, when you look at all the variables and everything in the world that you can think of, what is optimal? Like, do you want to optimize it? And, but we first got to put sustainability and adherence. If it suits your lifestyle, then you keep eating your 4 meals a day. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, but if you want to optimize at that extra little bit of percentage, then, spreading out your protein would be more optimal. But like I said, not everyone has the luxury of just eating your meals every 3 to 4 hours. And hence why, like, personally, I don't compete at the moment just because, I may only get like 3 meals in just because, as work, as busy as it's just hard, and then plus like the diet, like getting ultra lean, it's gonna be very tiring. As you, we could definitely talk about prep, and we could go all day about it, just how hard it is. But it is hard. Like, your brain uses glycogen, so you need that energy.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, we don't need to talk about prep. It's okay.
Yeah, prep is way too much. Let's not talk about it. You probably think about it all day.
No, that's it. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I would kind of like, I have like, because obviously, like for me, I like to obviously, like you say, collect all the data from a client, things like that, from a general conversation. But then I do a weird one. I like backtrack. So I'm like, right, this is how you want to look. And sometimes they say a date, right? They might be like, right, this time next year, or I've got a wedding or whatever it is. So that from there, I kind of backtrack. So I'm like, right, we need to think about like a 12-week, 16-week, whatever, 18-week prep leading into that. So that would be your strict diet. So that's the back end of that phase. Then 6 months prior to that, or 4 months, might be that gaining phase, kind of where we're focusing on performance, increasing calorie intake, building more lean muscle tissue. And then it gets closer to almost the time zone that we are at now. So it could be, again, like, right, we need to focus on building, like you say, sustainable habits and routines first. So we need to make sure that you're waking up at a similar time every day, going to bed at a similar time every day, making sure that you drink a glass of water when you wake up, you're taking your morning supplements. So we start to turn these habits, routines into what people like to call disciplined. That's literally it. So we want to start to build disciplined. I always think when people are like, oh, I'm not disciplined, I'm like, you can learn to be disciplined by basic
100%.
habits and routines. It's not like everyone's born, and we're not born like, that's it, I'm a disciplined baby child. That's it. Like, no one does that. Everything that we do, the best athletes in the world, sprinters, fucking everything from divers, basketball players, they learn that shit. They can't bounce and dribble a ball out the womb. They learn all these skills and they learn this mindset. And I think me and you kind of touched on it already, but like, it all stems down from the other 23 hours out the gym, looking after that kind of mindset. How do you talk to yourself? How do you do your, like, even basic things like just general self-development, learn yourself and things like that, learn what's sustainable, what's good. Like, oh, this bloats me out, it doesn't make me feel very good, that food source. Oh, let's try this. And it's just, I think the thing that I get pissed off nowadays is that we live in this instant gratification world where, like, if you want a date, you can go on Tinder. If you want food, you can go on Deliveroo. If you want X, Y, and Z, you can do this. So I'm like, and then, but I don't know why we transition that into health and fitness and abs. I guess it has been sold to us like that over the years, like, oh, 6-week shredding program, and then you got a 24-hour how to build a peachy bum, whatever it is. And you're just like, the fuck has happened? Like, everyone's gone to, most people besides us have gone to university and studied for at least 3 or 4 years to get a degree. So you
I
studied
didn't
3 or
finish
4
my
years.
degree. Just want to stop you there. I actually didn't finish.
Nor did I.
But
So it's fine.
I've learned, we've learned the skills. Like, I think what uni teaches you is to be able to, study the things yourself and to be able to dissect information, and knowing that not everything is perfect, especially like, in the science field. And what we do, we have to be able to look at experiments and understand that, we have to understand variables. And it's not like, oh, this experiment said that caffeine is good for you, and then you got another experiment that'll say caffeine's bad for you, but the variables are completely different.
Yeah, I think for, like, honestly, for me, for uni, I did a year and dropped out. I think the difference is what uni teaches young individuals is to stick with something for a good period of time.
Yeah.
I think because a lot of time when you look at, if a company looks at a CV, they're like, I think more than anything, no one gives a fuck what's on the CV. No one gives a fuck what degree you've got, but it says that, right, you've been able to commit yourself for 3 years, 4 years to study something. So I think it just shows actually you can commit to making a sacrifice for 3 or 4 years. Vice versa, if you're an employer, you want to bring someone into a business that's gonna, you can see growth, that you're actually going to get the most out of them as an employer, that they can work their way up in the business. Your health and fitness is no fucking different. I'm like, right, we've got this year goal, but actually, like, you're not going to do fitness just for a year and quit. I'm like, how do we make this? If someone's 25, I'm like, you're going to be working out for the next 50 years.
Yeah, even longer.
Yeah, exactly. So how do I as a coach now teach you to work out for the next 50 years? I think that's my mission going into things now more as a coach, especially for like lifestyle clients. If it's comp preps and things like that, I'm like, it's a bit of a different ball game, things like that. But even for photo shoot clients, I'm like, right, it's great that you want to achieve these goals, but what about afterwards? What's your training going to look like when work's busy? What's your nutrition going to look like when you go on holiday? How do you manage this? How do you live a healthy lifestyle for the rest of your life? Because health and fitness it's not a switch on and off. It's like, yep, sometimes like when you're in prep, it's 110 miles per hour and you just go for those set weeks. But when you're in off season, you're kind of doing at 80. You're kind of going at 80 miles per hour. You're kind of like, right, as long as I make sure I'm getting all my good food sources in, I'm fucking training hard, I'm progressing, I'm getting better, I'm getting bigger. That's all that matters. And I can go out once, twice a week for dinner, maybe once a month, have a few drinks. Absolutely fine. So I think that's the biggest thing that I get pissed off in the industry now, is that like, it's all just this short-term thing. Like we're getting now as people are like, oh, shouldn't bash it, but like I had a consultation call yesterday. It's like, I'm getting married in 6 weeks. I'm like,
Oh gosh.
what do you want me to fucking do in 6 weeks? Like
Oh gosh.
you're like a big dude. I
Yeah.
think they were like 120 kilos. And I'm like yeah, we can probably in 6 weeks be harsh and probably like, you're not doing anything right now. So we can probably strip off 15 kilos by just doing more. But I'm like, mate, you're still going to be 105 kilos on your wedding. And like, and you're 5'7" or 8.
Wow. Okay.
What, like, why do you think 6 weeks is enough time to make mistake, like to fix all the mistakes of the last 10 years of your life? Because you don't get that big in a year or 2 years.
Yeah. Unless you're a comp rep and then you just keep eating. But yeah, no, that I could definitely imagine. Yeah, the response is hard. Like people want that self gratification like very quickly. Exactly as you said, like 6 weeks to your wedding is very close. There's not much that can be really done. It's very hard even then. Like I can imagine how much they would have to be eating just to get there. And then if not anything, if they quit after that, which they most likely will, then they're gonna gain all that weight back, if not more.
Yeah.
Just because like they're putting their body through so much stress and they're gonna stop training and they're just gonna eat whatever they want. And they might even possibly gain back more weight than when they started.
Yeah. That's the harsh thing. But again, like I think that's the nice position me and you are in now, is that I've got to the point now, I'm like, I think we can be quite selective of who we work with, which is nice. And I'll always say as well, like, I think you're very similar. We jump on calls with people and things like that, but we're not here to sell a program. We're not here to sell anything. We're here just to be like, I don't care if you join the team, if you don't. Actually, when you have a call with one of us, it's more of an interview. Like, I need to make sure that I can work with you for the next 6 months or more. Actually, like, why should I help you almost?
Yeah, 100%. I think, being selective definitely because the good thing of where we're at, we're able to like be honest with people. Tell them straight out, like, look, 6 weeks, like, the biggest picture we look at is what we do outside of the 12 weeks or 6 months or whatever the case is. Because let's say they get to their goal, the goal is to lose, whatever 5 kilos in 12 weeks. Then we'd be like, but what are you going to do after? Like, do you want to be able to keep that weight off? Do you want to understand how to reverse diet out of that phase? And I think, being honest with people, they will understand it better now. Like a lot of people will be like, yeah, I get that. Like that makes sense. I always be honest. I just tell people exactly what they need to do. I'm like, look, dieting down's easy. Like, move more, eat less, train more. Simple. Works
Yeah.
magic. And then after that, it's like the reverse diet is 100 times harder, where you're actually trying to build your calories back up, because then you're like, you've gotten to your goal, and now it's about how do we actually sustain this.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? It's kind of like we came back to it. It's just dealing, because there's going to be emotional roller coasters along the way. They're going to have life bite them in the butt, because life fucking sucks sometimes. They're going to have work issues. They're going to have family issues. They're going to have relationship problems, like everything. So it's not so much like, I always say that we're counselors before we're fucking fitness coaches for first. We have to deal with the
100%.
lifestyle. Okay, cool. Now we can worry about training and nutrition. So it's cool.
Yeah.
What's the kind of, I just slipping back into you a little bit and things like that.
Yeah.
What's kind of, I guess, what's the kind of, because obviously you're kind of like taking a little step back at the moment, mostly focusing on like business coaching and things like that, and it's excelling really well, which is amazing to see. How long was kind of like the largest chunk that you were like training, competing, things like that? Was it kind of like a 5-year span sort of thing where you were all in competing? Did you compete every year?
Yeah. So when I started 8 years ago, I pretty much competed like every year at least once. So that's how I got to about like 8 shows. But I did internet, like the Arnold's Australia and stuff like that as well, where I did manage to win at Arnold's Classic Australia Men's Physique, like one of the classes, but I lost in overalls to get that pro card. So I was like one person away. So ever since then, I kind of like the direction of the sport kind of has changed, like especially with Pro League. Hence why like the shows after, they just look for more size, and that's when like it was just became a lot harder, because it was just like a size game. And then Pro League is pretty much like, it's split from IFBB Elite to IFBB Pro League. I don't know, yeah, there's a difference there. So like IFBB Elite is like more European shows and stuff like that, and then there's Australia shows as well, but the IFBB Pro League is like the Olympia level, standard. So the size they're looking for was just a lot bigger, and I realized that the harsh truth of it is like, I love competing. Like whenever I do something, it's all in. It's probably same as yourself. Like, you want to go all in. There's no like just dipping your toes. It's like I literally just did PT. I didn't do online coaching. I just focused on whatever PT clients I had. I gave them my all, and I just did competing. And then it was only until I stopped competing or realized that genetics does play a huge role, especially on like the professional level. And so that extra one, that extra percentage makes a massive difference. I was seeing guys like, who are amateurs who are just like massive, and I was just like, yeah, this is just like, honestly, from my point of view, I realized that it was just too hard, and I had to be honest with myself that yes, if I put 2 years of hard work prep, I could probably get there, but that'll be in the future. Like maybe like 2 years from now, once I've got business to where I can kind of take a step backwards and be like, okay, now I can actually like compete. Then I'll take like 2 year like prep
Yeah.
to actually get on stage. Yeah.
I think that's, again, like, this is something I feel like I've gone through a big journey in the last 2 years, maybe. Obviously I moved to Dubai in January, not this year, the year before, but this year has definitely opened up a lot of self-development, even in the last 6 months. And because I was a professional athlete before, kind of fitness and stuff like that. And I said, like, from day one, I was like, I like competing. I've done 2 shows now, and it's great, but I don't want to be a professional athlete ever again. Like, because I really enjoyed the process of the training, the suffering, the showing up. I love that process. And then when it actually came to competing, I was like, yeah, this is a bit naff.
And
Go on.
and then people forget that point. Like that's a very good point, because your prep could be like 20 weeks, or like you have off season, you have on season. It's the whole year, and then you compete one day, like one day of that 365 days of the year. So if you think about it, right, like where is the real journey? It's the journey itself. It's not the show day.
Yeah.
People forget that sort of. It's like, they focus heavily on just that show day, but they forget that they're not enjoying that process.
Yeah.
And I think if you enjoy that process, that's a good place to be in. Like enjoying that journey, that self-development, learning about yourself. Like prep has taught me a lot to become the coach I am today, just because I did it myself. Like I know what it feels like, you know, that pain, that feeling you get, like how you should be feeling, like when you wake up in the middle of the night going to the toilet all the time, you know, or like you're going to sleep hungry. Like I know those feels because I can empathize with that.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's why it makes us great coaches, because there's been days where we just put our head in our hands, and we just cry, and we're just like, what the fuck are we doing? But you know what though, because then it really unlocks what it's like to connect your body at both extremes. We both pushed off seasons where you're pushing 5,000 calories every day. And we've gone to depths where I'm like, I'm fucking keto, right? Like pretty much eating dust
Yeah.
for weeks and months. But it does just open up being like, it's good because it teaches you to be quite harsh as well. And like people are like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm like, you're fucking not. Trust me. I know what hungry feels like. Vice versa. And I think it's just those extremes. It's really important to understand, and just act, like you said, the journey, like what you learn about yourself, how you treat others, like your relationships, how sharp you get with people, how sad you get, how your emotions, how you respond and react to things is incredible. And I guess going back to kind of like the competing side of it, I think only in the last 6 months I've been like, oh, I'd like to be a professional athlete again. I've like, oh, I quite like that itch. But coming back to it, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I know that I want to always do classic. I always want to have my legs out because I like my legs. I like lower body sort of thing. So I want to have my legs out. But the reality of it is, number one, I don't want to do what it takes to be past the pro level.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like you say, like genetically, like, yeah, like we can all fight and fight and fight as much as you want to. Fuck genetics. I'm going to work at it. I'm like, you can, don't get me wrong. Personally, I don't have what it takes to do it. I don't have that mindset to be like, if genetics aren't by my side, I do not have almost the years to put in to do it and want to do it. I think because there's people out there that want it more than I do, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But I do want to get my body to a pro standard. And then the harsh reality of that is, okay, great. I would think I was 84 or like mid 84 kilos. And I look at myself, how the fuck am I 84 kilos? That is a tiny child. And then I'm like, my weight cap is 99 kilos.
Oh shit. Yep. That's hard.
So you're just like, you can't
What?
even fathom the size of these guys. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
the harsh reality of it. I'm like, okay, cool. So after these shows, I will be taking a 2-year off season to really grow and build a pro physique. And obviously being assisted, like, yes, we can probably pack on a good 5 to 7 kilos in 2 years. That's probably realistic.
That's very realistic.
But then also that still only sets me at kind of like 93 kilos potentially. Like, that's, don't get me wrong, weight's not a thing, but like you say, when it comes to going into that pro side of things, people are big fucking human beings out.
Yes.
Like,
You know, this, I think people don't realize that, like, as coaches, we know. We are like true to ourselves. We've seen it, and knowing that you travel to see the pros as well, so we know firsthand how big these guys are. Like, they are like the 100 of people, like the people we see, like, you know, in the pro league competing professionally, they are like the top 0.001% of people who can just like start young. They're just crazy big already, and you're just like, how are they only 20 years old and they're like, you know, already 100 kilos on stage? And I'm like, what? Like, and I even see it in my clients. I look at some of my clients and sometimes realize, like, you know, I could give them my all to all my clients, but then you just see the ones who just keep growing.
oh, it's crazy.
Like, it might be something on their end, but it might also be that genetic factor that just really pushes them to just keep building muscle, you know? And you're just like, wow, like, this guy's a vegan, but look how big he is. And you're just like, how is that even possible, you know?
I
And
would
it's
just turn it
crazy.
around and be like, no, he's just got a sick coach. That's all I would say.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we love to say, but we always give our clients the credit, because we only are here to guide them and give them the plan and support them as much as we can. But at the end of the day, they do the work.
I'd be like, mate, if he turns around and wins, I'm like, that was all fucking me. That was me.
Yeah. Jump on stage, give me the trophy.
But no, it is true. It's like, I think, what was it? We'll go into this a little bit and then we'll divert into kind of our main topic of today. But I think I just got fathomed by like, because obviously you've got different classes now, right? So you obviously got men's physique, you got classic, you got bodybuilding, you got bikini, then you got fitness or figure and all this sort of jazz. I just get fathomed now because obviously you're men's physique and I'm kind of going to that classic. So there's that divide. There's literally no fucking divide now. I'm like, men's physique guys might as well do classic and just all they need to do is train legs for 6 months to a year, just twice a week. And because like some of these, like I personally think men's physique need to have a weight cap now on a height as well, because I'm like, some of these guys in men's physique are pushing 130 kilos in their off season and they are bigger, more conditioned, absolutely jacked on their top half than 99% of fucking classic guys. And they have the classic lines. If they just pose like that, I'm just like, it just blows me away how big some of these men's physique guys are nowadays. It's phenomenal. Like,
I think, that's a topic, like, it's one of those things as well. Like, there's a lot of men's physique guys that are just like massive, right? And I think it comes down to height. That's what I've noticed, that it's something that plays along. Like if you are at a certain height, men's physique might be better for you just because you have longer limbs and stuff. And then you got classic, but the classic guys are shorter. Like a lot of the really good ones are shorter. Besides Chris Bumstead, who's a freak. He is I think like 6'1" or 6 foot around that mark,
yeah,
and
it's
he's just massive, right? Yeah. And then I think he won his first Olympia at 22, 23. I
oh,
think he's like only
fuck
like that.
off, did he?
Yeah, no, I think he's about 22 or 23. So that means he was competing, like he might got his pro card like in his like early 20s then. So I was just like, this guy is just like a freak. Like it's just
Yeah.
one of those guys who, like, even if you look at Kai Green, like Kai Green back in the day when he was 18, he looked crazy good. Like I think he might have competed naturally at the time, but he was like just had an amazing physique. And I was just like, dude, he just stacked it on even more each year. And so I kind of feel like when you're looking at pro league, it definitely requires that sort of higher stat. It takes a lot longer. Like it is like, I think you can get there. Like if you keep striving, you keep pushing, you keep trying to put 2 kilos on every year, in 10 years time you're like 20 kilos heavier, which will put you in sights of like, getting that pro card. But then that being said, you will see guys who are just like that 0.001% of people who just are massive at 15 years old. And then they just compete, like train for 5 years. And this could very well come down to knowledge. It could have been like, as I mentioned before, when I started, like I had to ask the biggest guy in the gym. But nowadays at 12, 13 years old, you see TikTok, you see YouTube videos, you're able to access all this information at a younger age. And because you're absorbing all the good knowledge now, imagine like you start at like 14, 15 years old, you train for 5 solid years, you put 2 kilos muscle on every year, or even more than that quicker because you are younger. You might put on like 10, 12 kilos in 5 years, and by the time you're 20, you might already be like contending for like winning national shows, state shows, whatever it is.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is it's just having that. I think you need the self-development and the self-awareness going into it to be like, I think the great thing about bodybuilding and fitness, it does teach, or any sport at the top standard, right? Like you have to train 4 years to potentially go to the Olympics. I'm like, so I think regardless of not, if you're a lifestyle client, if you want to go and do your first photo shoot, if you want to get on stage, you need to be looking at, I'm not going to say your entire life, because the journey does change, but you need to be thinking long term about a lot of this sort of stuff. Like vice versa, I've had that reality hit of, okay, actually, I I do want to be a father one day. I really do. But I need to be smart about this now, because obviously I'm taking anabolics and things like that. So I am going to go through the process of actually going to get my sperm saved and things like that. Because I do want to push this harder for a good few more years. And I don't know the risks, or I know the risks, but I don't know if I can have kids now even. So actually, I want to kind of be able to be in that position of long term. Like I would hate to meet my future wife and be like, want to have a family and be like, I can't. So I think looking at like the long, like it doesn't have to be as extreme as that, but looking at just kind of how how would you want to see your future life, and look at it from a realistic standpoint, is going to be massive for anyone listening to this or whatever you want to do. So I want to dive into well, we said this before the podcast, but we want to obviously both of us being kind of very similar wavelengths on things, and we both specialize in kind of physique transformations and kind of making sure that you're building that mindset along the way for long-term results. And we kind of just want to dive into kind of, I guess, like five top tips. Five top tips for what? Like a body transformation?
Yeah, or just like even yeah, attaining a good body transformation or attaining your goals in like your health and fitness realm.
Cool. Do you want to start?
Or like, so any like new online clients. So I think the number one thing would be probably counting macros, right?
Yeah.
That'll probably be the number one mistake we probably see very often with clients. And I think what people need to look at is that, when you start, counting macros, it's a skill. It's something like, it may be overwhelming at first. Like when people look at what are macros? Like, oh my God, like, I don't know what this is. You want me to count macros? You want me to do a diet plan? You want me to do this and that? And I'm like, look, like it's going to become easier. Like once you understand the concepts, once you learn it, it's going to be very easy. You're going to remember for the rest of your life. You're going to have this skill for the rest of your life that when you go into a restaurant, you're able to look at food and kind of like, okay, this is protein, this is my fats, this is my carbs. And that's how we probably eat. Like that's how you probably, I'm assuming you would eat that way as well. You go into a restaurant, if you're in the off season, and you'd be like, oh, I can eyeball food. I need to make sure I get my protein up. Maybe
you kind of
some
just
of the
see
stuff
numbers, don't you? Like
yeah, exactly. And this is the sort of skill we try to give people, especially as online coaches. And we're trying to develop people's skills that way. So it may feel overwhelming at first, and I normally personally get people to start off with like a diet plan, just so that way they can kind of manage the prep time and like understand what they should be eating and kind of get used to that, because we want to see how their body trends in the first 2-3 weeks, kind of see like if they follow this food perfectly, what is their body doing? Are they gaining weight? Are they losing weight? Are they in a good spot? Like most times or not, we may see people in the first week lose weight. Like they'll feel full at the beginning of the week, and then like the end of the week they're like, oh my God, I'm starting to feel hungry. And then that those are pointers and variables that their metabolism might be picking up.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think also as well, the good thing about the simple thing about macro tracking is that actually the amount of knowledge you gain by doing it. Like when you go into a supermarket and you scan a barcode and you're like, fucking hell, does it have that much shit in it? And then you scan something else, you're like, I can eat 60 of those for one of those, so I'm going to do that. I think that's the nice thing, because it's almost like going into a library and you're just reading a book. It allows the individual to learn a lot more, and like really simple things. Like I remember when I first started tracking macros, and it was cereal. Like who doesn't love cereal? And like I remember like a portion size 30 grams, and I remember it was like, kids, right? This is 30 grams.
Yeah. give them the big, like, was it
like any
shovel
bowl
full of food, cereal.
Yeah. And then you weigh out what a portion actually is, and then you're like, oh fuck, this is depressing.
30 grams, like seriously, 30 grams is like a handful. It's like shocking.
Especially when it's granola as well. You're like, oh fuck no.
Yes, that is the worst. You do realize that once you notice it, you're like, oh shit, this is the end of my life.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. So number one, macros. Yeah. So getting used to tracking macros, macro tracking, calorie counting in a sense. Number two, I'm going to go with routines. I think building I like to call them just non-negotiables in people's lives. So I always like to have clients have like, you can build up these non-negotiables over weeks and months and years, right? But I always like to be like the 3 non-negotiables every day. So that could be when you wake up, make sure you hydrate and make sure you go for a walk in the first half of the day. And then make sure by 7 p.m. you have your last dinner and you start to relax. Like something really simple, like starting to build routines and habits. Because I always think like when I can start to build routines and habits with an individual, number one, if it's just, they straight away, anxiety and stress reduces massively because they're controlling more things in their life. So then we're going to get a better response because again, their training's better, their sleep's better, all that sort of jazz, just from building simple habits and routines. And we are human beings. We are creatures of habit and we are creatures of routine. We need to have that we saw it in the pandemic, right? We needed to like, right, I need to make sure I'm going to work. I need to travel. I need to be in a social environment. I need these little things in my life to give me structure to my day. And I think when we can just add in 3 things and then every 2 weeks, just add another one on and then add another one on, then now you've got 10 non-negotiables that you do every day. This could be anything from, right, making sure you count your macros every day, making sure you're doing your steps every day, hydration, supplements, boom, 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 boom. And it just feels second nature. And then people turn around to you and go like, you're really disciplined. And you're like, well, not really. I just do the same shit every day.
Yeah. So you don't have to think twice about it.
That's the shit.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my second one, just routines and I guess habits,
Yeah.
routines more.
I think like, to touch on that topic, so a habit is like, you have to create a habit, you have to have that conscious effort. A behavior is what is a byproduct of a habit, and as you said, like, once you've developed those habits in place, because you have to be conscious about what you're doing. You have to make those changes. Like if you wake up in the morning and don't make your bed, right? Then you have to make that conscious effort tomorrow morning to be like, I need to make this bed. And then as you keep building on that, you keep building those routines, it becomes a behavior. You wake up, you don't make your bed, you walk out and you're like, wait a second, this feels weird. Like I didn't accomplish the first thing I normally do. And then that's when the subconscious behavior starts to come in, like a little bit of like science. And so I think it's really important that, as you said, like to build those routines, because then, it becomes behavior. You're like, I just do what I normally do. You don't think twice about it because you already developed the skills there. And I think having that habit early in the morning, as you said, like, waking up, brushing your teeth, and it sounds very common that everyone should, right? But then not everyone does sometimes. And so
Most people
it's a
don't.
yeah, it's a self-accomplishment thing as well. The first thing you do once you wake up, you've already made your bed. You feel accomplished. You've already achieved something of the day. And this will lead to more accomplishments throughout your entire day. And I think, that's a very important, if people can focus on that, they'll achieve great things, because they've disciplined enough, they've created the habits, the behaviors, they just become like winners, as we say, like, you win in your life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. And then if anyone wants to know more about that, have you read Atomic Habits, or is it Atomic Habits?
I've heard of it. I haven't actually read it, no.
I haven't read it. I've listened to it. It's a bit different. But honestly,
Okay, yeah.
anyone that hasn't, like, just go listen, download that Atomic Habits. Honestly, like I keep listening to it every month and I'm like, you always pick up on stuff. So fucking great book on habits and routines. It's insane.
I have to get onto that. Sounds like I definitely need to get onto that.
Sick. Number 3, mate, all yours.
I would say biggest mistakes I guess we see, or advice would be, we'll talk about training. So not training hard enough. Like the quality of training just isn't there. And this is important because let's say a barbell back squat, let's just pull up like one of those exercises. Everyone's 3 set of 10 is going to look different. You probably know as well, like you look at someone like, they'll be like, that will be a RRI of reps in reserve if you do use that, of like a 3. But then you're like, you know what, you have probably like 8 more reps after that. And so if people can focus on building better quality training, I think they'll get a lot quicker results. Instead of looking for the next best program, or like whatever people post online, do a push-pull split or do a bro split or do like upper body, low body split. Instead, improve the quality of your training, and that will take you long ways. Do the boring stuff, because I think people fear the boring stuff. It's like you may squat only once a week, right? And that's like 3 sets of 10. But then you squat the next week, that's only another 3 sets of 10. Improve the movement patterns by practicing it over and over again. Get used to the boring stuff and improving on that. Because over the years, I found that I learned the best way I became a PT, like how I became good, was just training myself, like repetitively doing the same stuff over and over again. Even now, I still learn new tips and tricks on how to do an exercise, and I now can teach my clients and explain it to them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing, man. Like I'm really big on that because like I don't do reps and reserves or anything like that. I just train till there's nothing there. So at the end of the day, like I always have that thing, like, yes, reps and reserve has its thing depending on your ability. And it's absolutely fine. It's good though. Like if you're doing right, like if 10 reps and you did like, could you have done one more? Yeah. Well, why didn't you?
Yeah.
Like if it's there, why are you not doing it? I think what you touched on there is really nice, is that saying boring. I'm like, I almost try and teach people, I'm like, if it's boring, that's the best thing ever. Like, what's that insanity quote? Like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result or something like that, or whatever it is. But it is true. Like at the end of the day, like there is no magic formula to anything. Like you have to just get very good at the basics. And it's the same as a car. Like a car started off from a horse and cart and it had fucking 4 wheels. I'm like, the car still has 4 wheels and it still has a chassis. It still has the same framework. All we've done is got better at building cars. That's literally it. And that's took hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. So I'm like, and the human body is always going to have a shoulder joint. It's always going to have a hip joint. We can't change those pathways. So I'm like, just get really good at lunging, really good at squatting, and really good at fucking, I don't know, a bench press. Do you know what I mean? Just get really good at those.
Yeah.
And just don't see it as boring, but think of like the small marginal gains that you're getting from it each time. Think about all the little progressions you're getting from it.
Yeah.
And the harsh reality is that like, if you want, like you talk to any, or you listen to any podcasts or YouTube videos, I like listening to basketball players or boxers and things like that. And they're fucking ruthless. Like they just like, you have to work hard. You have to work hard. You have to put in the energy. You have to put in the effort. If you put in 80%, expect 80% back. If you put in 90, expect 90% back. And the same with your training. If you're leaving the gym and you're like, I could have done a bit more, that's your fault and your responsibility to make up next time. And that just comes down to just working hard for whatever you want. And you got to put that into your training. So I think it's a really good one. It's a big topic, training intensity. And like, oh, it hurts. I'm like, it fucking should hurt. It's not supposed to be like rolling around in fucking fairy dust. Like you can do that when you get home and lie in bed for like air. But right now, bury yourself.
Yeah, it's like, that, how Usain Bolt, I saw a quote or something like, talking about Usain Bolt, how he would train for like, 4 years before each Olympics, right? And then he would train every single day to only run like 0.1 of a second quicker.
Yeah.
Or 1 second quicker even, and it's just like that idea, like it's only 1 second, right? And then you're just like, you're training for 4 years for this vision that you've got to believe that it's gonna work. Like, that you have to deep down, like dig deep and believe that everything you put in is gonna have its return. It's like when you study for an exam, if you want to talk about other things, then studying for exam, you're only gonna get it, the results that you put in. Unless you're just naturally very smart. Like, you probably just got it. Maybe you have a high IQ, then you just remember everything and absorb everything.
Yeah.
But most times it's not. It's about the effort you put in.
It is. It's effort and return. It's as simple as it comes down to. What was that? Was that 3?
That was 3, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. 4 for a body transformation. Have structure.
Yeah.
And I mean like structure from all areas. Like, yes, we structured your training. So following a structured training program, following a structured diet. And I mean, stick to it. I'm like, you need to stick to it for a minimum, for my opinion, is 12 weeks minimum, 3 months. You need to stick to that sort of training program. And if it's a diet, like personally, you should be having structure from a coach. Like me and you can sit, you said at the beginning of this podcast, is that actually you've had numerous coaches. I've had coaches from since I was 14 years old, being a professional athlete in kayaking all the way through till now. And then I've had 4 bodybuilding coaches. I've had business coaches. I've had everything. So learn from people's mistakes, like learn from our mistakes. Like you've done keto, you've done all this sort of shit. Guess what, guys? You don't have to do it. Learn from him and he fucked it all up. So it's fine. You can bypass all the years. And it is just making sure that when you bring someone on board straight away, they're bringing in structure to your training, your nutrition. They're taking the guesswork out from you. So when you think, oh, maybe I should be doing this, maybe I should be trying that, let me YouTube this, just follow the structure that is in place. It could be completely wrong, but the fact that you're following it and you're consistent with it, you'll see results from it. That's absolutely fine. So making sure that, but also they're going to bring structure to your life. Like we said, we've already dabbled on it. Like one of the things is going to be routines. So like, right, I need to make sure I get up and I drink water. I need to make sure I get up and do this. Routines and having that structure. So I just think structure is a really big one. And again, when you have structure, it gives you clarity and peace of mind.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, that's very good. Like, I think structure is one of those things that we help put those structure in place and give you that sort of guidance as well, which is like really important because, like I said, the info overload part, there's a lot of information out there, but what works best for you,
Mm.
and I think this does come down to my fifth, I would say the last fifth one, if I
Yeah,
can.
go for it. No, go.
It's a combination of communication and learn education.
Yeah.
So communication being that I know I'm chucking in two kind of into one just because I
No,
want
it's
to give
good.
them both. Yeah. Because communication being that you got to communicate with us. You got to tell us your problems. You got to tell us what's working, what's not working, and be transparent. Because if you aren't communicating with us, this means you're probably not checking in as well. And as coaches, we're gonna suffer because we're like, "Where's my check-in? Why aren't you checking in?" And then it's like being real with yourself and knowing that, okay, I messed up this week, but I've got to be honest. I can't be like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna check in and just kind of like message him midweek next week and be like, oh yeah, I had like a bad week last week." No, just tell us when you have bad days, because
Yeah.
then we'll help you implement the right strategies to make sure that you don't make those mistakes again, or like we shouldn't call them mistakes, but bad choices,
Yeah.
and then be
100%.
like, okay, why did those happen? Or something stressful happened in life or work or whatever the case is. Then we'll help you be like, okay, let's try to approach this a different way next time, And then education, be willing to learn. Like, definitely learn from, our mistakes, as he said. Ask us the right questions because we aren't mind readers. If you don't know something, if you want to clarify something, ask us the right questions. Just ask us why we're doing this. I'm not gonna feel offended. I'm sure you're probably not gonna feel offended if someone asks you like, oh, like, why are we doing this? Then you explain to them, right? Like, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to coach you, help add value to your lives, so then that way you're able to build these habits and behaviors for long-term success.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, I think communication is one that I'm almost like the proudest as a coach as well, because I'm like, I fucking go in on it. And it is almost like, I'm like, literally, imagine I'm your fucking boyfriend from the get-go. Like, you need to, that is how it works, right? Like, that is a coach and client relationship, exactly the same as when you have a partner. You need to tell them how you're feeling. You need to tell them what's going on. Like, yeah, like I coach a lot of women's, like, I do need to know about your hormone cycle. I do need to know, is it okay? Is it healthy? I do need to get, and we talk about things like, again, like we can talk to guys and I'm like, are you going to the toilet? Like, what does your shit look like? Literally, is it hard? Is it soft? Have you got the runs? Like, we do
Yeah.
have to get quite detailed about this. But
Constipation.
yeah, literally. But I'm like, but having, for the individual to have the confidence to talk to their coach is so important. So we need to make sure that actually from the get-go, communication is vital. And it's so true, so true. And like you say, on like knowledge and things like that, like that's one of my pet hates, when someone said I've had a bad day, and then I don't hear about it till the end of the week, and one bad day is spiraled into for the next 5 days, and now you get to a check-in day and you said last week was shit. I'm like, we could have just had an hour of shit if you just like picked up the phone and communicated with me and told me. So like, our
Yeah.
job is to, I think people sometimes, I'll always take it as a compliment, but people feel like, oh, I don't want to bother you. I'm like, your job is to bother me. Like,
Yeah. 100%.
no,
With some boundaries, like, don't message us like 12 a.m., but we'll put our phone on silent.
oh, that's fine. If anyone knows me, they know my business WhatsApp goes off at 7:30 p.m. So it's fine.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I have a separate phone, so I just put my business phone in my office. So I just leave it there and I separate myself from it, so I don't look at it
And I would actually say, like,
until the next day.
yeah, so true. I would actually say, any coaches that end up listening to this podcast, make sure you do set rules in place for yourself, for your own,
Oh, 100%.
for your own sanity, for your own sanity. Like,
Yeah.
you do need to have a downtime in the day, vice versa. Like, yeah, you just need to make sure that you structure out your day. It's a topic for a different day, but you do need to make sure you give yourself a break, because when you're dealing with, like you probably do as it now, like I have clients all over the world. So actually, like, you could be on your phone 24/7 with different time zones, but there's only
Yeah.
so much you can do. And as a coach, our job is to be the healthiest, happiest us, so that we can transfer that onto others. So yeah,
100%.
easy. We turned 5 into probably like 10 epic topics for that. So it's good.
Yeah, we did go on. I think we enjoyed the conversation and we led pretty well. I think we have a lot of useful stuff in here.
No,
Hopefully some people can find some value.
Yeah, 100%, man. Even to be fair, even I did. It's just nice to talk to like-minded individuals. So honestly, thank you so much for jumping on. I do have a little bit of a tradition with this podcast.
Yeah.
So obviously being at the 1% podcast, what is one tip, one piece of advice that is going to take someone 1% further forward to tomorrow? What would that be?
Ooh, this is one tip of advice.
It can't be the five that we
Try belief, like the 1%. Believe in yourself. Like that's just number one thing. Like because we are we all have perspectives, right? We always compare ourselves to others. We're always looking at other people, and we forget that we are the heroes of our own story. So truly believe in yourself, no matter what happens, that you can do anything. And I think like no matter like the outside, negative emotion, no one ever sees your hard work until you've achieved it. Like it's like show day. Oh my God, that guy looks insane. But then they don't know what he's went through just to get there.
Yeah,
And I think that no one will clap for you along the way until you're there. So always remember to believe in yourself and push your limits and be the best you can be just every single day.
it's amazing. Yeah, simple. It is hard. It is hard to implement. I think only in the last year I've started to believe in myself. So it's good. I can relate to that a lot. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And if anyone wants to stalk you, find you, what's the best way to kind of contact you, all that sort of stuff?
So I'm on Instagram. So just be SOH, so aesthetic_legion. And
Sick.
that's, and if you want to look at my business page, slegion.coaching.
Sick. Perfect. I'll put all Jeremy's and his team stuff all in the links in the bios, the click buttons, the links, all that sort of stuff. So that'll all go in the descriptions below, guys. Honestly, thank you so much, bud. It's been absolutely amazing. And we'll see you in Dubai, or I'll see you in Australia pretty soon, man.
Sounds very good. I'm super excited to see you in person. But thank you for having me on this podcast, and thank you to everyone that listens to your podcast. Hopefully you found some good value from what we've talked about today.
Amazing. Thanks, bud. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.